this has been continuing to focus here on the right stand. We've been continuing to focus on the Khalistani threat that has emanated from Canada. How partisan politics has fueled this appeasement drive in the country that has given space to this separatist ideology. Now, this ideology has threatened Bharat and targeted our diplomatic assets. Not just that, the pandering to Khalistani elements led to a major nosedive in diplomatic ties, which have now been reset with the exit of Justin Trudeau. And more importantly, the NDP, that is the ally, Jagmeet Singh, who were literally routed in the elections recently. The entry of Mark Carney and rebooting of ties with Bharat has seemingly given a wake-up call to the Canadian administration, and they are admitting it. Here's news coming in, viewers. CNN News 18 has accessed Canada's Escalating Terrorism and Organised Crime Convergence Threat Assessment Report for 2025. And here are some of the key takeaways from this 126-page report. Now, this report talks of simultaneous threats from ideologically, politically and religiously motivated extremism. Then, it also speaks about most attacks in the last decade were low sophistication assaults by self-funded lone extremists. Thirdly, it says transnational criminal cartels, now designated as terrorist entities, are increasing. It's on the way up. Then, extremist groups use a mix of donations, merchandise sales, drug trafficking and cryptocurrency. Canadian origin funds going into Hezbollah, Hamas, Babar Khalsa International, Sikh Youth Federation. Extremist groups in Canada maintain sophisticated international financial networks. Social isolation, disinformation and online networks are major accelerators of radicalization. International criminal groups provide routes, logistics and financing for terrorist operations. This report is a good sign for Indian intelligence services, which have aimed to cooperate with their Canadian counterparts to tackle this entire key threat, key menace. Top intelligence sources have also said that Babar Khalsa International and Sikh Youth Federation directly threaten Bharat's internal security. 2025 report exposes vulnerabilities in Canada's counter-terrorism finance regime. Extremist fundraising within Canada's South Asian diaspora communities is serious, the report quotes. And extremist financial networks operate under the guise of religious or cultural charities, cultural cover for extremist-linked remittances that can finance anti-Bharat operations. Operation of a wider system where anti-Bharat elements may align with global terror. The big question remains, is this a welcome wake-up call in Canada? Or is this much ado about nothing? In the sense there'll be all talk and nothing else. Rajiv Dogra, former diplomat with us, and also we have Dr. Ranganathan. But first to Daniel Boardman. Daniel, and to our other gents, namaste. Thank you for your time. How would you respond to the findings of this report? Is this perhaps acknowledgement what was always known, or is this a shift in the right direction within the Canadian administration and intelligence?
Well, first, thanks for having me. And I'll give you a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B on this answer. So I understand your concerns, and I think that's the concerns of many Canadians who follow this issue. Is this just a lot of talk and then nothing? And that would be something. But the fact that we are now admitting this, that our security agencies are now saying Khalistan out loud, there's a significant shift in the post-Trudeau, Jagmeet Singh era, where, again, CSIS, our intelligence agencies, now list Khalistani extremism as a threat. This is actually a report that, again, as you said, a lot of us have been saying this for a long time. I know I've been talking to you for the last almost 2 years now, saying these things are happening, and the Canadian media and establishment was sort of kicking their feet or denying it or claiming that this is some sort of foreign intelligence operation that we're running here. But now it's Canadian intelligence that has pretty rightfully said, okay, this is all happening, and this is interesting because it shows, and Khalistan is the great example of sort of the convergence of all these different things. Right, so you have the hardcore Khalistanis. We could say the true believers, the people who are going to, plant bombs on an airplane to create an independent Punjab, Pakistan excluded, to rebuild the glorious empire of Ranjit Singh that excludes his capital. Okay, you have a few dozen of those right? And they might be the hardcores. And then you have another layer of this, which you mentioned is like the narco-terrorism, the drug financing, right? That's where a lot of the funding is now coming from. Where this might have been started by Pakistan funding in the 80s and then maybe taken over by the Chinese in the last decade. A lot of it is now self-funded because the Khalistanis have gotten themselves into sort of the narco-terrorism ring. Now, how did they get into it? This is where a lot of Canadians, and I think this is really the wedge, and I think, in my view, the thread that just needs to be finally unraveled to get the public consciousness is, they're undercutting the trucking industry. The Khalistanis pretty much run the trucking industry. And what they're doing is they're taking these quasi-legal migrants. They, if you look at it's Ontario, my province, these fake trucking schools where you don't even need a full visa to come. You can come on a tourist visa and get a trucking license from these unregistered schools. And this is what you saw in the States. The guy who did a U-turn in the middle of the highway, which, I've seen people pull that move in India, and people are kind of expecting it. No one pulls that in America, and that's vehicular homicide. So you see they're undercutting the trucking industry with, pretty much slave labor, right, which drives a lot of Canadian truckers and Canadian companies out of business. So they can then take control of the trucking industries. Well, if you're undercutting everyone, you're not making much profit. How do you make profit? Well, if you control the roads and all the trucking industries and all the ports, you then run the logistics for all the fentanyl that's going on right here. So a lot of the bus you see of truckers with drugs, you look at the names and you say, okay, Jat Sikhs from Punjab, connect the dots there. They're highly likely to be connected to the Khalistan movement. So you have, again, this is where it comes into the labor market, and then the immigration fraud scheme, which is another big thing in the West here, where post-COVID, or during COVID, we massively increased the temporary foreign workers. I mean, just like everyone went inside for 2 years for COVID, and we came out, and the population was increased by 30%, and barely any of the newcomers speak competent English, and everyone's kind of frustrated because we have the scams and temporary foreign worker program. That's also connected to the Khalistan movement. So all of this is self-funding, and then the final leg of this is the ideological radicalization. So they got in with the Muslim Brotherhood, with the Chinese, with the radical left, into the school systems, and they're now pushing these ideologies on the new kids. So then they're trying to create this second generation of Sikhs in Canada and brainwash them into becoming the hardcores of the movement to keep the nucleus going, to sort of fund the movement there. And this is a complete danger to your country in India and my country in Canada and the Americans when they wake up to it. So once I think we're so very close to untying the final knot to make kind of realize the danger. So I see this as a good sign that the knot looks to be loosening and shaking. I won't say it's there yet, but I see progress.
Right. Before we just take this conversation forward, there's been an important update on just the conversation that we had on Nepal. So viewers, we'll put the details at the bottom of the screen in a bit. I'm just going to quickly read this out. I'm breaking format here. Home Minister of Nepal has tendered his resignation. So Ramesh Likhak has tendered his resignation following deadly protests that have rocked the country, citing moral responsibility for the loss of lives during demonstrations. The minister has announced his decision, escalating the political fallout amid the ongoing unrest. So just quickly reading this, taking our viewers through this, we put out the details, but something big is brewing in Nepal, viewers. Over the next 24 hours, a lot of things, perhaps dominoes could topple, and this is only further going to escalate the tensions in Nepal, because as Ambassador Rajiv Dogra said and our experts said, it's a very, very loosely bound coalition that is currently holding on to power there. And this could really impact the Nepal Congress. So Ambassador Rajiv Dogra, quick comment on the Nepal situation and the Home Minister tendering his resignation, then we'll circle back to the Khalistan issue. Please. Yes.
Well, the first point is that at least he's owned the moral responsibility for this and tendered his resignation. I don't know which party he belongs to. If he belongs to Nepali Congress Party, then it is certainly a sign of major division in this coalition. Even otherwise, I don't see Nepali Congress taking very long with Oli. This is his fourth term in government, and in every term, he has not been a very successful prime minister. This time, within 1 year...
Okay, sir, there is a correction. I just want to quickly correct that also, sir. He's offered to quit. He has offered to quit, citing moral responsibility for the loss of lives. So he has offered to quit. He has not officially resigned yet. Yes, Ambassador.
Well, whatever it is, the fact that he has offered to quit, naturally, he would be seeking the approval of his party leadership and the Prime Minister to accept that offer. So technically, he's perhaps right. But the very fact that he's offered to quit is a blot on the government of Mr. Oli.
Right.
So we let's see how the morning plays out in Nepal. But if today is any indication and the number of casualties, I feel very sorry for the people of Nepal and the youth of Nepal in particular.
Right. Thank you for your thoughts there. So viewers, that's the update coming in from Nepal. Let's quickly go back to the Canada conversation and the 126-page report. Daniel Boardman with us, making a few observations as to how they have now been able to build layers, the core layer and outer spreading out to ensure that the future generations that get absorbed into it. Reminds me of the WSO, because the original WSO, if you look at the overall patrons, it's their generation, second and third generation, which is deeply embedded into Canadian policy making, Canadian education, Canadian social service systems, and they are milking this to try and create their own bed. Ambassador Rajiv Dogra, as Daniel Boardman was saying. So this 126-page report, can it help stem the rut and perhaps course correct? Ji.
Well, your panelist Daniel gave a very lucid, detailed background to the entire issue. And I agree with him totally. What I would like to highlight are a couple of things. First, that the departure of Trudeau has made a vital difference. And as you had said, the defeat of the extreme Khalistani party is a second positive for the people of Canada, not just for people of India. The other thing is the big difference between the terrorism from Canada and from UK in 80s and 90s, which was really very disturbing. Punjab was going through a terrible time at that time. That time, Pakistan was active and Pakistan was open. ISI was instigating every move, planning every violent act of the extremist elements in Canada. And Indian diplomats had to face the worst of it. This time, ISI seems to be, for the moment, in the background, but there's an additional element which has come in. And as Daniel pointed out, this is the narcotics or drug running element, which is even more dangerous because now they have a lot of money on their hands and they have the ability not just to transfer money to Indian counterparts, but also to do a lot of violent acts in Canada itself, because money talks.
Correct.
And money impels. So ISI, Chinese, as Daniel also hinted, would be interested in a closer association, if not getting control of the new Khalistani movement. Right. So let's hope the Canadian government, the new Canadian government, acts firmly, especially in light of this report, and tries to control the situation, especially the trucking side of it.
Right. But along with that, it's the narrative that's being pushed among the people, correction of the narrative, resetting of the understanding of Sikhism, its connection with Sanatan values and Hindu values, and the core of it with the generation that is born after 84 and perhaps born abroad and not so directly connected with Bharatiya history and Itihas. Dr. Ranganathan, thank you for your patience. Yes.
Not at all. So, just to put out the usual statement that both of us promised we would whenever we talk of Khalistan next, is the fact that these Khalistanis want or hark back to Maharaja Ranjit Singh's empire and to recreate it without telling the world that the flag of Maharaja Ranjit Singh had Durga Ma on her. And the second part is that their map that they say is Khalistan excludes the Pakistan Punjab.
Daniel has joined that club because he mentioned that too. Yeah.
So I'm very thankful that you allow me to say these two quote unquote small print or large print whenever we talk of Khalistani. So, that basically explains within a couple of sentences the entire facade of these Khalistanis and how hypocritical they are. But coming back to this, Daniel has elucidated the point brilliantly, and so has the ambassador. I'll just add a couple of things that actually continue to worry me. They are the following. Yes, Daniel is right. We're living in the post-Trudeau world, so things are of course much better. But then the fact of the matter is that you have a very influential Sikh community which is almost 1 million strong in Canada. The entire population is about 35-37 million. Now, they have, yes, sadly infiltrated in the police force, increasingly in the judiciary, as this report also discloses. But it is not about the Khalistani elements. It is about how important do the political dispensation of Canada think the Sikh community is. And if they start thinking like Trudeau did, that this community is very important, what would chug along with this community are the Khalistani elements, and that is what worries me. There is a demographic shift that has happened. So even though you have only 1 million strong amongst 37 million population, in some cities there are as high percentage as about 22%. I don't know what's the percentage of Sikh community in Danielstown. I think it's about 7%. But the fact of the matter is, the more influential they get, the more Khalistani elements would begin to sequester the politician support, and that is what worries me. That's not going away.
Well, that has to go away, and let's hope that there are, more importantly, from Bharat's end, with the Indian diaspora present there, the correction of the narrative, especially within the education systems, has to be incorporated. And slowly, these numbers, the voters in Canada came out and said what they think. And the mandate itself was so outrightly trouncing such vitriol, that perhaps eventually we have to have some faith in the people and the common people, those who suffered silently. But when it came, they dealt a very heavy blow on these secessionists and these separatists. Have to wind up